Today we're diving into a morning tragedy in Hamburg that has the city reeling. A man with 28 identities caught on a train. Germany's foreign minister hitting a wall in Beijing. The Louvre losing priceless artifacts to sewage. And a seismic shift in American foreign policy that has Europe scrambling. And I've saved the most fascinating story for the very end. I spent years inside one of those big mainstream outlets, watching editors shape stories to fit the approved narrative, bending facts to serve agendas. I walked away from that world because I couldn't stomach it anymore. Now I work independently, answer to no one, and bring you the stories that matter without the filter. Here's what I need from you right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you find value in what we do here, consider becoming a sponsor. We put in serious hours fact-checking every claim, verifying every detail, making sure you're not getting fed recycled propaganda or lazy clickbait. That takes resources. Your support keeps us independent and honest. And stick with me all the way through, because what I'm holding for the end will absolutely blow your mind. Let's start with Hamburg. Early this morning, in a former hotel building on the southeast side of the city, another violent incident unfolded. Multiple patrol cars rushed to the scene. Officers moved fast, managed to arrest a suspect. Paramedics fought to save a man's life. They lost that fight. The investigation continues, and residents are shaken as they start their week with this grim news. But here's where things get stranger. Across Germany, people are talking about a 37-year-old Lebanese man who didn't just overstay his welcome. This guy was traveling on a regional train from Belgium, and when federal police stopped him, they discovered something remarkable. He was registered in their system under 28 different names, 28 identities. He had no valid residence permit for the Schengen zone, was banned from entering or living in Germany, yet here he was, riding the rails with an entire portfolio of fake personas. He's now in custody awaiting deportation back to Lebanon. But think about this for a second. How does someone accumulate 28 identities? How long was he operating under this system? And how many others are out there doing the same thing? Now let's talk about what's happening at the government level, because this is where the real drama unfolds. Germany's foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, just wrapped up a visit to China, and it did not go well. The trip focused on fair trade, access to rare earth metals, and semiconductor chips. Germany desperately needs these materials. Baerbock already admitted publicly that getting import licenses for rare earth metals from China looks highly unlikely. There's been progress, she says, but not enough. And here's the problem. China's laying down conditions. They want Germany to recognize the One China principle regarding Taiwan. That's the price of admission. Baerbock met with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and the outcome is pretty much what you'd expect. The visit demonstrated the importance of dialogue, sure, but don't hold your breath for quick concessions on raw materials. And Baerbock can't recognize the One China policy, not after her previous critical statements about Taiwan irritated Beijing so badly they cancelled her October trip. To recognize that principle, you'd need to be independent. Germany doesn't have that luxury right now, though the desire for autonomy is clearly there, simmering Ben. Meanwhile, back home, German media is buzzing over a new study from the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. The headline: 74% of Germans without a migration background fear right-wing extremism. That's their number one concern. Over 90% say they're satisfied with life in Germany, but that number has been dropping steadily since 2015. Here's an interesting detail. Among Germans without migration backgrounds, only 37% feel they're always treated with respect. But among foreigners living in Germany, that number jumps to 52%. They feel more respected than native Germans do. Let that sink in for a moment. But wait, because we're heading to Paris now, and you need to hear this. The Louvre, one of the most famous museums on the planet, just experienced a disaster. A sewage pipe burst. Sewage water poured down onto the Egyptian Antiquities Library, damaging roughly 400 items. Hundreds of priceless artifacts ruined. Some are damaged so badly they can't be restored. Ever. And here's the kicker. Library staff had been warning management for years about the risk of those pipes bursting. The pipes were hidden above the ceiling. They leaked periodically. Everyone knew this was coming. Management did nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it gets worse. 3 unions representing Louvre workers are planning an indefinite strike starting December 15th. Why? Because working conditions are deteriorating rapidly. The museum closes entire sections early every day due to staff shortages. The building itself is falling apart. Technical failures happen constantly. Visiting the Louvre has become, and I'm quoting the unions here, a real obstacle course. So France isn't just dealing with political and economic crises. Now they've got a full-blown cultural crisis on their hands. Let's shift to Greece, where farmers are absolutely done playing nice. Mass protests continue as they demand the government keep paying European subsidies. And they're not just blocking roads, they're threatening to shut down customs checkpoints, ports, and airports. These aren't empty threats. The farmers are furious about rising production costs and rock-bottom market prices for their goods. They're getting squeezed from every direction, and they're making sure everyone knows it. Here's something that's about to shake up the entire European Union. 7 member states are demanding the European Commission reconsider the ban on diesel and gasoline cars set for 2035. Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Poland, and Slovakia are pushing back hard. The pressure from national governments, lawmakers, and the auto industry is probably going to force the Commission to delay this review. The Greens are going to lose their minds, obviously. Expect protests and outrage. But these 7 countries are saying the Commission absolutely must rethink this policy. Their stated goal? Preserving the strategic independence of the European automotive industry. Germany and Italy co-signed a second letter making this case even more forcefully. Are you starting to see the pattern here? Because this is all connected. In Brussels, interior ministers from EU member states just finished a meeting, and they've agreed to ramp up pressure on rejected asylum seekers. The goal is making deportations more effective. People without the right to stay in any EU country will now face new obligations. If they don't cooperate with authorities, they could see their social benefits cut. And starting in summer 2026, the EU plans to reject applications right at the border. Asylum seekers who can't return to their home countries might be sent to return centers in third countries. The Netherlands is already working on establishing such a center in Uganda, so watch closely to see which other third countries get named as potential destinations for people who can't go home. Now we get to the real bombshell, the story that's absolutely dominating German media right now. The United States no longer wants to be the world's policeman. Those are the actual words being used. The White House just published a new national security strategy, and critics see it as America abandoning Europe. This American strategy explicitly rejects the idea of permanent American dominance over the entire world. Allies shouldn't shift the costs of their own defense onto the American people. The United States will only intervene in conflicts when they directly affect American interests. That's the new framework. Among other things, the US wants to end the era of mass migration, rebuild trade relationships including through tariffs, and pay less for other countries' security. Wars like Iraq and Afghanistan must never happen again. America will no longer impose democracy or social changes that clash with other countries' traditions and history. So what does this mean for Europe? Washington wants to politically restructure Europe. The goal is supporting resistance within the European community, and by resistance, they mean right-wing parties. Those parties will get American backing. The US is accusing the European Union and individual governments of destroying their own countries, and if that continues, America will stop considering certain EU member states as allies. Certain states, not all. Think about that carefully. One of America's top priorities is ending the war in Ukraine as quickly as possible. In Germany, Johann Volkmann, a foreign policy expert from Friedrich Merz's Christian Democratic Union, calls this new American document an alarm signal. Europeans need to urgently invest in common defense to become more independent. There's going to be a new order. How that process unfolds, how they deal with resistance to the American plan, that remains the big mystery. But one thing is crystal clear, it won't be gentle. The Pentagon chief just praised Germany for increasing defense spending. Pete Hegseth specifically highlighted Germany's positive shift on defense expenditures, putting Germany in the same category as the most active allies. According to Hegseth, model allies who are boosting their defense budgets, countries like Israel, South Korea, Poland, Germany, the Baltic states, and others, will enjoy special favor from the United States. Hegseth emphasized that Washington expects similar steps from every NATO member without exception. Countries still not contributing to collective defense should, in his exact words, fear the consequences. What consequences? He didn't specify, but he did say this: President Donald Trump gladly helps countries that help themselves. That's the message, and German media is absolutely obsessed with this story right now. In his speech at the Reagan Defense Forum, Hegseth brutally criticized previous American administrations. He declared the era of American utopian idealism over. Long live harsh realism. That's what the Pentagon chief announced to the entire world. According to Hegseth, the United States must stop getting distracted by democracy building, undefined wars, regime changes, and aimless nation building. Instead, America will prioritize practical, concrete national interests. No more getting sidetracked by other countries. Rather than openly confronting China, Hegseth suggests respecting its power, and Europe needs to increase defense spending so it doesn't depend so heavily on the US. Allies are not children, he told them directly. China's foreign ministry spokesman responded that Beijing is ready to cooperate with the United States to improve bilateral relations while strictly protecting sovereignty and national security. So we're watching carefully as America and the entire world order transforms before our eyes. We're on the threshold of massive changes. There's no escaping what's coming. But let's set aside all the heavy geopolitical stuff for a moment and talk about a scandal in Spain that's genuinely bizarre. Two former nuns just got temporarily thrown in jail. The investigation claims these nuns were selling artifacts and gold they had no right to dispose of. The women had previously been excommunicated after a conflict with the Vatican. That's the key detail. Despite being excommunicated, they continued living in the monastery, and when police came to arrest them, nobody would open the gates. Officers had to force their way in. This caused quite a commotion. How is this even possible? But it is. During the search, police seized art objects. The former nuns are now facing charges for selling nearly 2 kilograms of gold for €121,000. After being arrested for trafficking stolen goods and spending a night in jail, the women appeared in court and were released on bail. This is what happens in our times. And here's the thing, if they hadn't had that falling out with the Vatican, everything might have gone very differently for them. That's what we're dealing with today. Stories that reveal so much about where we are as a civilization. Write your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you think about everything that's happening. I wish you peaceful skies, and I'll see you tomorrow. May the news always be good. Take care. Before you go, make sure you've subscribed and hit that like button. If this kind of independent reporting matters to you, consider sponsoring the channel. We're out here doing the work nobody else wants to do, and we need your support to keep it going. We have covered a massive amount of ground today, from the crumbling infrastructure of Paris to the cold, hard recalibration of global power in Washington. It is a lot to process, and frankly, the mainstream often gets it wrong or deliberately leaves out the parts that matter most. That is why I am asking you, personally, to help us keep this operation alive. If you value a voice that refuses to just read the press releases, please hit that like button and subscribe. It tells the algorithm that truth still matters. But beyond that, I want to warmly invite you to become a sponsor of this channel, doing this job right, verifying every detail about that 28 identity breach or parsing the fine print of a Pentagon strategy is a grueling daily battle. We do it to shield you from the fake news and the lazy narratives that flood your feed. We don't have corporate overlords cutting checks. We rely entirely on you. Your support isn't just a donation, it is a vote for integrity in an era of noise. Together, we can keep the lights on and the facts sharp. I'm Andrew Meet Rich. The world is moving fast, so keep your eyes open. I'll see you in the next one.